Hello viewers, this is attorney Naresh Gehi, and today we are going to discuss a very important issue which affects a lot of people, especially in the state of New York. And at this time, as you all rightly know, that the economy in our country has been very slow, and there are many people in our country who are struggling in paying their debts. If you are in a situation wherein you cannot pay your debt, you may have a couple of options. One of the finest options for you in today's time is to consider filing bankruptcy. Yes, the good news is that there have been changes in the bankruptcy law in the state of New York, and these are very much beneficial to people who cannot pay their debts. For example, if you're struggling to pay your debt, I think the good news for you today is to consider a bankruptcy. Bankruptcy has a lot of advantages. The first good advantage which you have in bankruptcy is that once if you are discharged in bankruptcy, the good news is that most of your debt collectors cannot come after you. For example, let's take an example. You have a lot of credit card debts and you're just getting burdened with your credit card debt. The good news is that once if you are discharged in bankruptcy, those debt collectors who call you every day, who bother you every single day on the phone, they've been calling your work, they've actually sent you written notices, and they've been threatening you every single day that we're going to take you to court and we're going to send a marshal to your house. Those people cannot collect once if you are discharged in bankruptcy. Besides that, people ask me very often, Mr. Gehi, isn't it true that once if I file for bankruptcy, for 7 years, my credit history will be ruined? The answer is no. You can continue to build your credit history even after you have been discharged in bankruptcy. Yes, even if you have been discharged in bankruptcy, you can start building your credit report right away. Let's take a simple example. How can you do that? You got discharged in bankruptcy. Thereafter, what you should do, apply for a checking card, apply for a small credit card, and start paying your credit card bills on time. The good news is that if you start paying your bills on time, automatically you'll see a change in your credit report. And there are many creditors who may give you credit, and there may be some who may not give you credit. But you've helped many clients over the years to get discharged in bankruptcy, and after that, they have been able to get credit and they've also been able to have a fresh start in their lives. So, in essence, if you're getting harassing phone calls, if you have received a summons or a notice from the court, or even if you have a judgment, the good news is that bankruptcy can help you very much and you can get your debts discharged. Sometimes people come to me in my office and ask me, Mr. Gehi, if I file for bankruptcy, isn't it true that I won't be able to have a bank account? This information is not correct. You can definitely continue to have your bank account and you can continue to have it even during your bankruptcy period, and you can continue to have it even after your bankruptcy. So these misconceptions are not true when it comes to bankruptcy. The good news is that you can always have a fresh start when you apply for bankruptcy. The next question remains is that can I keep my house if I file for bankruptcy? The question is that, of course, you can keep a house subject to a few limitations. It's a good idea for you to consult an experienced bankruptcy attorney, especially when you own a house or a property. This is because the lawyer should look up the exemptions. The good news in New York is that if you have equity in the house, and this is the new law and it's very much favorable to people who have debt problems. If you have an equity in your house and if the equity is $150,000, the good news is that you can still keep your house and you can still file for bankruptcy. This is great news. This is the recent law which got signed. In the past, it used to be $50,000, but now it is $150,000, which means let's take an example that if John Doe owns a house and there is equity in the house and the equity is $140,000, yes, he can file for bankruptcy. And if it is $150,000, yes, he can file for bankruptcy. And if it's more than that, then you need to be very careful before you file for bankruptcy. Now, if you have more equity, then what you can do? There are a few solutions which you have. Now, let's take an example. if the deed is on your name as well as on your wife's name, the good news is that if husband and wife file for a bankruptcy together, you are entitled to a $300,000 exemption. That is absolutely fantastic, and you can file for bankruptcy. The benefits of bankruptcy are, the good news is that once if you are discharged, you don't have to pay your debt. We've had clients come to our office who had debts of $100,000, $150,000, 40,000, 50,000. On many occasions, they did not have to pay their creditors at all. And most of these creditors were credit card companies who used to regularly harass our clients. Some of them were landlords. So the good news for you is that you may be able to keep your house and you can still qualify for bankruptcy. Now the next question which I get is, Mr. Gehi, how about my car? I have a car and I want to keep my car. What should I do when I file bankruptcy? The good news now is that you can keep a car if the value of the car is up to $4,000. Let's take an example. Jane Doe owns a car and the value of that car is $4,000. Can she file for bankruptcy? Yes, she can file for bankruptcy, and she can also keep her car. And because the value of this car is up to $4,000, how do you know the value of your car? Look into the blue book and you'll know the value of your car. What happens when the value of the car is more than $4,000? Generally, when we've gone to court over the years, the trustee has asked us to pay the difference. If the value of a car is $7,000, the court may ask you for $3,000, and the good news is that you can still qualify for a bankruptcy. That is fantastic news. Sometimes you get clients who say that, Mr. Gehi, I own the car, but there's a mortgage on the car from a bank. The good news is then you will be able to keep the car, and especially if you have to pay a lot of money to the mortgage company, and you can continue to file for your bankruptcy and get discharged, and you can keep your car. The message which I'm trying to give to the audience here is that you can keep your car when you file for bankruptcy in certain cases. So you should definitely consult an experienced attorney who can tell you when you can keep a car. Then sometimes I get calls, Mr. K, you have some jewelry, for example, I have a watch and I want to keep my watch and I want to have some jewelry in the house. You have an exemption now under the new law. You can have $1,000 worth of jewelry and you can still keep it for yourself. So this is excellent. Some of my clients are basically, they're in the construction business and they say, Mr. Gehi, I have some tools of my trade, which means I have, my toolbox and I have a ladder and, I have my equipment which I use in the construction business. The good news is that there's an exemption for you to keep the tools of your trade, provided the value of your tools is not more than $3,000. So the good news is that this has increased, and in the past, the exemption used to be only $600. Now it has increased to $3,000. So you also have a cash exemption in bankruptcy and aggregate exemption for cash, household goods, and clothing, which means that if you have your clothes and if you have basically some cash with you, the good news is the value of that, if that adds up to $10,000, you can keep that with you. So that is good news for you. So good news is that because of the snow economy, the government has really been very kind to all of us, because the government does understand the fact that there are many people in this country who cannot pay their debts at that time. And at our law firm, we've had many people getting discharged in bankruptcy. And when some people don't want to file bankruptcy, what do we do? If you do not want to file for your bankruptcy, we can try to settle your debt with the debt collectors. Remember, there are different types of bankruptcy. Right now, we are talking about the Chapter 7 bankruptcy exemptions, and this is commonly known as the individual bankruptcy in the state of New York. And besides that, we have other kinds of bankruptcies, Chapter 13, which is a type of bankruptcy wherein actually you can keep your house and you can keep some of your assets, but it's known as a payment plan bankruptcy. That's a Chapter 13. And for corporate bankruptcies, we can consider a Chapter 11 bankruptcy. If you are troubled with that, if you're getting harassing calls from debt collectors, and if you think that you're mentally tortured by these people, and if you got a summons and a notice, and if you have a judgment against you, and if you want to get rid of all your debt problems, consider calling the law offices of NM Gehi PC. We are conveniently located in Forest Hills, and we have offices in Richmond Hill and in Long Island. Call us at 718 263 5999 for a free initial personal consultation. The advice is free and it can really benefit you a lot. Call us up. We have late evening and weekend appointments available. If you are harassed by debt collectors, there's one solution. You may always remember our name for all your debt matters. It's the law offices of NMKE. We are located at 118-21 Queens Boulevard, Suite 409, Forest Hills, New York 11375, 718-263-5999. Call us for a free initial personal consultation.